Okay, so Father, I thank you for this class. I pray for every person that as Lord has opened, that you give them understanding and help them, Lord, to understand everything in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So today I'm going to talk about the last part of demand and supply. And this part, remember in the previous classes, we have dealt with the producer surplus and the consumer surplus. Okay. So if I have to show, I'm not the best when it comes to drawing. So we have this supply curve, and we can have our demand curve coming all the way down. So we can label this as a demand curve, and this is supply curve. I don't have a ruler, but I believe you to draw something better. And this we can state is our equilibrium price, right? So this is our equilibrium price, and on the y-axis here, we know that we have got price, and here we have quantity. So it can either be quantity supplied or quantity demanded. Now, when we want to show the deadweight loss, I must emphasize that deadweight loss is simply the loss, by definition, the loss in society surplus. So the loss in society what? Surplus. So society surplus is just the total sum of consumer surplus and producer surplus. So these two together form what is known as society surplus. So whenever we have a loss in either of the two, we call that a deadweight loss. Now, how do you show the deadweight loss when it comes to the supply and demand? Now, the deadweight loss only comes in when there is a disturbance in the market. Whenever we're not in equilibrium, we are going to suffer from the deadweight loss. We're going to lose surplus. So one of the ways in which you get to show the deadweight loss whenever it comes in is whenever we're not charging the equilibrium price. So let's say when the government comes in, for example, and they bring in the aspect of the price floor. So we can begin with the price floor. So what happens with the price floor? We know this is the price, the minimum price that a supplier is allowed to sell a price, is allowed to sell a product. So when it comes to this, to show this, we're going to draw, okay, maybe let me just use a different color. So let's say this line here is representing the what? The price floor. So this is the price floor, okay? How do you show the deadweight loss? Now, remember consumer surplus, we said consumer surplus, it is the area that is above the price but below the what? The demand, isn't it? So above the price and below the demand curve is the consumer surplus. Now, I want you to see when the government now comes and imposes this price floor, and it is right here shown in this red line, our consumer surplus is going to decrease. So what is going to be our consumer surplus? Now, I must make emphasis that whenever you're drawing these diagrams, whether the price flow or the price ceiling, when you're drawing the price flow, the quantity that will be produced in that market will be where you consider the demand when you are looking at the price flow. So when it comes here, we're going to consider the what? The demand, isn't it? So at this point, this is the quantity that is going to be produced in the society. So you don't look at the supply, you focus on the demand. So here, because we're looking at consumer surplus and producer surplus, so the quantity that is going to be produced will be here and not this. Because this, we're not considering things that are produced, we're looking at things that are being bought when it comes to the aspect of consumer surplus or producer surplus. Okay, so when it comes to this, you are looking at this quantity here. So this is the quantity that is going to be bought, isn't it? So the quantity that is going to be bought will be QD. We can label it as QD. All right. Because this one here, this quantity is the quantity supplied. It's not being bought. So we consider the one that is being bought. So which is right here. Okay. So now I want you now to look at the consumer surplus right at this point. So because this is the quantity that is being bought, the quantity demanded, I want you to take a look at what we're going to call now the consumer surplus after the price floor has been put in effect. So remember, we define it the same way. It is the area where above the price, but below the demand curve. So you can see that it's this which I've shaded right here in yellow. So this is going to be our consumer surplus. Okay, so right from this, after we have discovered the quantity here, let us now define our producer surplus. Now, producer surplus, we know from the previous definition that it is the area where above the supply curve, so this is supply curve, is the area above the supply curve, but below the what? The price. So it is below the price, but above the supply curve. Now, here, this is our quantity. Remember when we're in equilibrium, this was our quantity. That's why we came to say we are looking at all this area here. But here we're looking at the quantity that is being produced now. It is here, right? So this is the quantity. So we're not going to consider this area because when we're talking, for example, at this area, at this point, you look at quantity that is here, isn't it? So all these areas are representing quantity above. So you focus on the quantity that is being produced, that is being bought in the economy, in the market, and that is this. So in this case, this is going to be our limit line. So it means our producer surplus, we have to take the area above the supply curve, below the price, and it should be on the left side of this. So it means our producer surplus would therefore be equal to this area that I'm shading right here in green. Okay, so this is the what? Our producer surplus. So the one in yellow, in green right here, is our producer what? Surplus. Now you can see that if we are not having this price floor, what would have been our consumer surplus? You know that it is right here, isn't it? If we had no this, if we didn't have this price floor, our consumer surplus would have looked at this, isn't it? This price, and then would have said this area, and our producer surplus would have been this whole area here, isn't it? So you can see as compared to our original one before this price floor, this was our consumer surplus. Our producer surplus was this whole area here. Our consumer was here, and our producer was here. So you can see from here that we don't have this area being shaded. Here, this whole area was being shaded. But here you can see that we are having a loss in both the consumer surplus. So you can see that right here, this producer surplus has been lost, and here the consumer surplus has been lost, isn't it? So you can see that this whole triangle here represents the loss in what? In society surplus. Therefore, this right here, this loss is what we call as what? So you can see that this plus this is what is going to be called the what? The deadweight loss. So being shaded, I can put this in, let me choose a different color. If I'm told now to show it, I can choose this. I can say this pink area is what is referred to as the what? The deadweight loss. Okay, and that is all how you show the deadweight loss when it comes to the aspect of the price flow. So this is the dead weight loss. Okay. Okay, so now how about if we have a price ceiling? So you know the price ceiling will be the maximum price, isn't it? That producers are allowed to sell a product. So we have to draw again our supply and demand. So this is our supply curve, and this is going to be our demand curve right here. So this is our demand curve and our supply curve like we had. Now we know that this time you are dealing with a price ceiling. So the price ceiling, let me just choose a different color. The price ceiling is going to be right here below. So we call this our price what? Ceiling. Okay, so this is our price ceiling now. Now, in order for us to determine the deadweight loss, we need to figure out which quantity is going to be produced, okay? So the quantity that we're going to consider now will be on the supply curve. So we come here, and this is going to be what? The quantity that is going to be produced. So remember, for the other one, we're looking at the demand curve. It was right here. For this one, we are now considering the supply curve because it's price ceiling. So now, how are we going to do it? Again, I just want you now to you need to find out the quantity that is going to be demanded as well. So if we're right here, it means the quantity that will be demanded will be up here, isn't it? So this is going to be our quantity demanded. This will be the same quantity supplied, which will be the quantity as well demanded. So this right here at this point, okay, so this is going to be our graph right here. Okay, so the most important thing is knowing which quantity, then just connecting it down straight, touching it both the supply and the demand curves. So now, since we have this right here, how can we figure out the deadweight loss? I'm sure you've already seen it, isn't it? So you know that if we had no government intervening the market, we know that our equilibrium price was this, isn't it? So this was our P star right here. Okay. Now, because the government has come in and it says charge this price, let's call this as P. Okay, we can call it P1. All right. We can see right here that when we are down, we're having the price ceiling, we're going to have this thing called the what? the shortage right here, okay? So this shortage is what is being created by this. And this triangle that is right here is what is being referred to as what? The deadweight loss. So let me just choose a different color. Now this one has effects. So this one in yellow right here, this is the box that is being created. It will be called the what? The deadweight loss. So the deadweight loss. And the same way we calculated the consumer surplus and the producer surplus, now this is our price ceiling, right? So what is going to be our consumer surplus? If you want to find out our consumer surplus, you know that the consumer surplus, it is the area above the what? The area above the price, but below the demand curve. So our producer surplus, our consumer surplus is going to be this area that I'm shading right now, because it's the area above the price, but below the demand, isn't it? Then the consumer surplus will be what? The producer surplus rather. So the producer, we know that it's a supply curve. So it's the area above the supply curve, but below the price line, isn't it? So this is going to be this is the producer surplus, and this right here is the consumer surplus. The deadweight loss is right here. So if you're told to express or show the deadweight loss that is created by government intervening in the market through the price floors and the price ceilings, these are the diagrams that you're going to be needed. So the major thing that is there, remember the quantity. So you choose this quantity right here, then you come with it down, okay? Then again, exceed it to where it will meet the demand curve. All right, then once you have this line that is here, you will be able to see this triangle that is being created here. Then you can just show your consumer surplus, your producer surplus, and that deadweight loss. And that is all pretty much that is there that was remaining. When it comes to the deadweight loss, you can repeat the video and just watch it in your own time for revisions. But now let me go to the next last part, okay, when it comes to quantity demanded. Now this is deriving, okay, so you can just put the subheading deriving. So deriving the demand function. So deriving the demand function. Now I must make emphasis when it comes to the aspect of deriving the demand function, that the same way we derive the demand function is the same way we're going to derive the supply function. So I'll just talk about deriving the demand function, and that is all. So now let's say you have been given, okay, so we're deriving the demand function. So let's say you have been given this demand schedule, okay? So let's say we have price here, then we have quantity demanded. So quantity demanded, okay? You can write it in full. Okay, my pens, this is very bad. Even if I'm bad at drawing, this was very bad. Okay. Okay, so let me put it here. We're just going to draw. Okay, I don't know why I'm coming back here, but okay, forgive me because I'm not using a book. It's a tablet. Okay, so let's say we have these quantities. We have 12, we have 8, we have 6. Okay, let me make it consistent. Okay, so we have 4 here, not 6. Then we have, okay, let's say 0 because we don't need a lot of numbers. Then right here we have, okay, let's say 1, 2, 3, and a 4. Okay, so let this be our demand schedule. Then you have been told derive the demand function. So I want you just to write down the general form. So the general form, so you can write down to say the general form for the demand function, because we're dealing only with the linear demand functions here. Okay, when you go to second years or third years, you now be doing with others. But in first year, you just consider the linear demand function. And you know that every straight line in grade 12, you learned that it's equal to y is equal to what? Mx plus c, isn't it? So the same way we're going to consider this, we are going to have the general form for the demand function. You're going to say QD is equal to A plus BP, where P is the price. And then these two are constants. These are numbers, okay? So now the only thing that you need to form the to derive the demand function, you only need to find your A, and you also need to find your what? Your B. And that is all. So I want you to write down these steps. The first step is you need to find the B. So your B here, when it comes to this general function for grade 12, is your gradient. So your B is the slope, okay? Then this C, which is the constant, that is this A right here, okay? So let us go ahead now and compute that. So let me just erase this. I need some space right here. Okay, so let us find, so I hope you have written that down. So the first thing that you need to do is, I want you to write to say step 1. Okay, so step 1 is find the B. So find the B, we're simply talking about finding the slope. So you know from grade 12, if this is your demand function, your y-axis here, we are going to have what? In our y-axis, we have price. Then in our x-axis, what do you have? You have quantity. Now, this B is not directly the slope, but the inverse slope, okay? Inverse slope. So by inverse slope, you know that the slope, we're finding the change in y over the change in x, isn't it? But now when we're finding the inverse slope, it means we're going to have what? The inverse slope, this B, will be equal to the change in x over the change in y. And that's what we mean by inverse slope. It's just the opposite of what we are having. Okay, so right here, we're not going to calculate the direct gradient, but we're going to calculate the what? The inverse slope. So the B is the inverse slope. So this is the change in x over change in y. So you can see from here, what is in our x-axis? It is quantity. What is in our y-axis? It is price. So therefore, to find this, we need to find the gradient. We're going to say change in what? Change in Q over the change in the P, which is in the y-axis. So the P is in the y-axis and the Q is in the x-axis. So we're finding the inverse slope. So it's change in Q over change in what? In P right there. Okay, so I hope that is okay. So now how do you find it? To find the gradient, you know that to find change, this can be broken down. We can say this is equal to Q2 minus Q1 over P2 minus P1. So by P2, P1, we just mean current and initial. So this is the current Q, initial Q, current and initial. That is all. So now when it comes down now to picking which points are we going to use, now it doesn't matter because this is a linear demand function. So we know that the slope is going to be the same. Remember, the slope of a straight line is the same throughout. It doesn't change. So it means we can pick any two coordinates right here, and then we can replace them in here to find our what? Our B. So always remember the step 1, you need to find this B, which is the what? The inverse slope. So by finding that, we need 2 points on the demand schedule. So if this is a demand schedule, you can pick any and you're going to find the same answer. Okay, you are going to find the same answer. So let me just connect my laptop. Okay, so for the first one, I said we find B, isn't it? So now to find this B, you need 2 points on the demand schedule. So now it doesn't matter which one you pick, it doesn't matter, okay? So you can just pick 2 points. So maybe in my case, I would love to use this and these to be my 2 points, okay? And I'm going to name this as my, okay? And the prices, it means they should also be, they should follow one another, okay? So if this is going to be your P1 and this is your P2, then it means this should also be what? Your Q1 and this will be what? Your Q2. So if it is vice versa, it means this side, they should also change. But regardless of which one you use, they're all going to give us the same answer. Okay, so let us find our B then. So we know that our B is equal to what? In terms of our formula, I said it's the change in Q over change in what? Over change in P. So this will be equal to what? So what's the change in Q? So Q2 is 3. So we're going to say 3 minus 2 divided by, what is the price? The price 2 is, we're going to have 4 minus what? Minus 8. And since you know that demand has a negative relationship, so the slope, you should find it to be a negative, because of the inverse relationship between price and demand. So this we're going to have, this is 1 divided by negative what? Negative 4, right? And then this should give us 0. What? Okay, I don't have a calculator here, but I guess this should be able to. So this gives us 0.25, right? 0.25. So we have found our B. So remember, our general form is A minus, I said A minus what? A plus B, right? A plus B P, like this, right? So price, we should leave it. We only find B and A, like I said. So I've already found our B. So now that we have our B, it's easy for us now to go on to step 2 and find our A. So let us go to step 2. So you can write step 2, find your A now. So step 2 is now finding A. So I want us to go down Okay, so let us find A. So now we know that our general function, we have said Q is equal to what? A plus B P. So since we have found B, we can rewrite this as Q is equal to A plus, what is our B? We found 0.25. It was a negative, isn't it? So this will become a negative. Okay, let me just put it here because I know there are people who suffer with the negative and the positive. So this we're going to say, this is going to be in open bracket negative 0.25, okay? Then multiplied by what? By P. So this will be Q is equal to A minus 0.25 P. So you discover that for supply, this will be a positive sign because supply has a positive relationship with price. So now, since now you can see that we have A and then we have this, from this equation, this is our step 2 now, we just need to find A, then we're done. So to find our A, all we need to do is we can pick now any point which we want. So you can choose this pair, for example, when price is 12 and quantity demanded 1, when this is, or this, or you can choose whichever, but this time we only need one pair. So which one do you want to choose? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, whichever I can choose this one right here. Okay, I will choose this pair here when price is 4 and quantity demanded is 3. So what do? I just replace now. So when quantity demanded is 3, so I can put my 3 where there's Q here. I can say 3 is equal to A minus 0.25. Then what is my price? The price when the quantity is 3, it is 4. So when it is 4 right there, I can find my N now. So I can say 0.25 by 4, that gives me 1. So this is just the same as having 3 is equal to A minus 1, because this is giving us 1. Then you can take the 1 to the other side. That means our A is equal to what? 4. So now that we have found our A, we can just replace now in our equation. Okay, we can just replace it now in our equation. So it means, therefore, we now have our demand function. Since we have found our A and our B, our demand function will therefore be equal to what? Our general demand function will say Q is equal to, what is our A? Our A we have found is 4. Then we're going to say minus 0.25 P. So this right here, when you find your A and your B, will become your demand function. Okay, and that is the way that you get to derive it. So let me just give you another example that I'd love you to try it out. If you're watching the recorded one, please do pause the video and try it out, and you can confirm with the answers that I'm going to give. Okay, so let me just give you this question right here. Okay, so we have this, and I want you just to try it out on your own, then you can confirm the answer. So pause the video, and then we can get on, okay? All right, so you should have found this. So I said step 1, okay? So I said step 1, what do you find? You first find your B, isn't it? Your B, of which finding your B, we know that B is equal to what? The change in quantity demanded over the change in what? In the price. So we're going to have, I don't know which points you picked, but for me, I think I'll just pick this and I'll pick this. All right, so I'll pick this to be my Q2, my Q1, and then this is going to be my Q2, then this will be my P1, and this will be my P2. All right, and then from there, I can calculate this by just putting, so Q2 minus Q1, that will be 20 minus 10 over P2 minus P1 is just going to be 4 minus 5, which will be a negative. So this will just give me -1 there. So I'm going to have 10 over -1, which is just equal to -10. So I found my B there to be -10. Then after finding my B, now I can go back to my general form. I know that Q is equal to A plus BP, isn't it? So my Q is, so I can pick any point now. I can decide even to pick this one right here. I can say when my Q is 50, this will be equal to, I'm finding my A, then I can say this is -10 right here. So it's -10. And what is the price? The price is 1. So this will just give me 10. So there's this price, I can put 1, right? So I can say my A will there be equal to what? A will be equal to, I can take this to the other side, which we're just going to have 50 plus 10. So it means my A will therefore be equal to what? 60. So 60 is my A. Therefore, my demand function, I can say that the demand function is equal to what? What is the A? It is 60. Then our B is what? -10. Then we have the P. So this should be the demand function that you would have found. So pretty much that is all about demand and supply. I think when you come on Wednesday, I can give you a good test, just some questions on demand and supply, and then we can get to start elasticity. Elasticity, we only need 2 classes and you're good to go. So please, thank you so much for joining in. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. So you can just click the subscribe. I can see you. Click it just now. That's very good. All right, then we'll get to see you for the next class. Thank you so much for having joined in. I'll see you in the next class.